Finance, Shri Pankaj Chaudhary ji, Dr. Bhagwat Karaj. Also on the desk are Finance Secretary and Secretary Expenditures, Dr. T.V. Somanathan, Secretary Economic Affairs, Shri Ajay Seth, Secretary Deepam, Shri Tuhin Kant Pandey, Secretary Revenue, Shri Sanjay Malhotra, Secretary Financial Services, Dr. Vivek Joshi, and Chief Economic Advisor, Dr. V. Anantanageshwaran. A warm welcome to the Finance Minister and her team at the National Media Center. At the beginning of the press conference, Finance Minister will make opening remarks. After that, we will open the floor for discussions and questions and answers. Thank you. Over to you, Minister Ma'am.
So thank you for coming here today. Thank you very much for coming here today. Slightly longish opening remarks. I'll try to cut it down. But over and above what you heard me say, I just want to give the overall perspective. So I'll take a bit longer than I desire. See, this is an interim budget presented just before the election, obviously. The four large things that I want to draw your attention to is GDP. You get the numbers, you see it, and so on. But I want to bring in this dimension that governance, development, and performance. On all these three heads, I'd like to say what actually we have achieved, because that forms the backdrop. So, on governance, this budget speaks from a position where we have delivered on development, we better manage the economy with correct intentions, correct policies, and correct decisions. So it's a governance with care, conviction, and confidence. If that stood for the GDP's G, the D stands for people living better, earning better, and having high aspirations for the future. And if I move to the P, the performance, 3 consecutive years of 7% growth, fastest growing economy in G20, all parts of the country participating in the growth. Price stability and inflation management, handling the health and economic fallout of COVID, build out of physical, digital, and social infrastructure. DPI as a factor of production almost for formalization and financial inclusion and growth of the economy. Cleaning up the banking system, GST, one nation, one market, and one tax, the IBC. So, if you were to look at performance, I've listed some of them. So, your GDP, as we look at governance, development, and performance, I have something to say on each of these. So, this budget, vote on account, is getting presented with the GDP that we want to speak to you about. And in that, the fiscal management actually is something which I would like you to spend some time, even as you go through the budget. But I'll flag it here, bringing down the fiscal deficit in spite of very challenging times, as per the announced consolidation path, and with transparency and prudence. So, in fact, I was just remarking to my officers this morning, most of you all had already calculated the figures, RE revenue, RE expenditure, this is what it is, because every month you get the reports coming out. So you don't need to wait till the budget statement. Every month you get the accounts, and so budget process has become absolutely transparent and questionable. If there are any, you're there to question, we are here to answer. But we set in the process of keeping everything brought on budget and nothing kept aside from it or underneath it. So, with that, the budget deficit, fiscal deficit, 5.8%, which is much lower than the 5.9, which was at the BE. Similarly, for the 24-25 budget, we've given 5.1 as the fiscal deficit, so clearly indicating that we are on track to meet the glide path which was set in 2021-22, and that we are well on track to meet the 4.5% fiscal deficit on or below 4.5 even by FY26. If this is the background with which I'm talking and the presentation of the budget happened, I want to very clearly put some things under the heading, if you want to call it that, Disha Nirdeshak Batein. You must have heard the Honorable Prime Minister speak before the Parliament session, well before the sessions commenced. His usual customary remarks. He said the budget will be presented tomorrow and you will have some Disha Nirdeshak Batein in it. So, what are those Disha Nirdeshak Batein? There are about 5 of them I highlight. Social justice as effective and necessary governance model. So it's not just a slogan for us, social justice, we'll have to work for Nyay. No, we've shown you that it is a governance model and a successful one at that. So social justice as an effective and governance, necessarily a governance model. Then 4 major caste groups, as we call it, as Prime Minister has emphasized, the poor, the women, the youth, and the Annadata. So Disha Nirdeshak Batein, you have the second point. Third, focus on infrastructure. This year, again, massive increases of capex happened in the last 4 years. This year, too, there is 11% increase, resulting in a very recallable number, 11 lakhs, 11,111 lakh, 11 lakh, 11,111 crores. So continuing the trend of the last 4 years, where capital expenditure has been the route, one for revival earlier from COVID, and now for sustained growth towards Amritkal, towards the Vikasit Bharat goal. Fourth is the using of technology as a huge opportunity. DPI as almost a new factor of production. So it is actually bringing in the value addition to the economy. It is facilitating every sector to bring in the value addition which is so required and improves on our productivity. And the last Disha Nirdeshak Batein is high-powered committee for extensive consideration of challenges arising from population growth and demographic challenges. So if these are Disha Nirdeshak Batein, what were the major announcements? I'll recall very quickly 12 of them. I'm not spending any time except for reading out what those 12 are. 2 crore more homes under the PM Awas Yojana. We already completed nearly the 3 crore. Housing for middle class, rooftop solar for at least 300 units of power generation every month, which will be Muft Bijli for the households. There will be some assistance and some kind of a funding which will be extended. So you're generating renewable energy, providing the renewable energy generators the free that which will they that which will they would want to use, and over and above that, the surplus that they produce can be used for selling and earning money out of it. Enhancement of target for Lakpati Didi from 2 crore women to 3 crore women. Preparing and empowering the MSMEs to grow and compete globally. Aligning regulatory environment for them. Um, the sixth is making sure that the eastern region, and when I say eastern region, I'm not talking about northeast. Northeast will get the attention that they've been getting all the while. They will still continue to get it, and they will be on the top of our priority. But when I say the eastern region, I'm talking about Bihar, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, and Orissa, making sure that they'll become the engines of growth for the new Amritkal India that we are trying to use as a bridge towards leading to um, towards Vikasit Bharat 2047. And Eastern India, I've missed out on West Bengal. Please add it. Bihar, Jharkhand, Orissa, Chhattisgarh, and West Bengal. Next generation reforms will be carried on, building consensus with states and stakeholders for reform, perform, transform. Three major corridors, which are programs for railways, for logistics efficiency, and they have been explained. The important point that I want to highlight there is to make sure for Vikasit Bharat, you just don't need to build for better passenger convenience. You need to build for better passenger convenience. You need to give them safety. You need to shorten the traveling time for them. So one of the corridor is going to give emphasis for high density routes where passengers traffic is very high. We need to bring efficiencies and better safety in those areas. But for Viksit Bharat, passengers need to move as they wish. But equally, materials, raw materials, um, building goods, cement, rare earths, minerals, we need them to move efficiently as well. So the corridor will take care of that as well. So the synergy between movement of people and movement of goods is what is being highlighted in the three corridors that we're talking about. Um, ninth is ninth announcement, that is urbanization, looking at metro and Namo Bharat. Uh, One of the railway related things which I missed out on telling you, 40,000 bogies are going to be uh, improved in the standards with which they can be effective rolling stock and also give the convenience in the passenger experience inside the bogies as well. So 40,000 coaches are going to be brought up to the level of Vande Bharat standards. Metro and Namo Bharat, I did mention, so that urban transformation through transit oriented development can happen. The 10th announcement, which I draw your attention to, is 1 lakh crore corpus for research and innovation by private sector. So that's coming in at the 10th. 11th is boost to tourism, including spiritual tourism. Interest-free loans will be given to states so that they can build on iconic tourist centers. And the 12th one is supporting reforms in state. They are separate from the development of tourism centers. And therefore, I want you all to have the clarity that help to centers are supporting reforms in state is slightly different from boost to tourism. There will be a white paper on economic performance of the last 10 years compared with the previous 10 years. The 12th announcement is so much a statement that I would like to make, which is what I made in the budget speech as well. Government has got the trust and the confidence and the blessings of the people based on its exemplary track record of GDP, as I said, governance, development, and performance, effective delivery, and also on Jan Kalyan. So highlighted, highlighted points have been realized as goals of Vikasit Bharat till now, and they are the realizable goals also continuing to be so, because what we want to underline is we govern with good intentions, true dedication, and hard work in the coming years. And that's why Amrit Kal is also now called Kartabya Kal. In short, that's the budget. Thank you very much.
Yeah. The finance minister has just now encapsulated the key highlights of the budget. We'll now open the floor. We can begin with the front row here. Please go ahead, 53. Please hand over the microphone here.
Hello, ma'am. This is Priyashmita from Informist Media. Ma'am, I wanted to know about the projections in your tax collections. So, tax collections are seen currently growing at about 14.4%. Your April to December data shows. However, the projections in your budget are lower than that. So, a back of the envelope calculation shows that you're going to get about 55,000 above your revised estimate if the collections continues. So, your estimates are conservative. Would you say that?
I'll certainly ask Somanathan to come in on that. Estimates are always realistic with us.
So let me clarify this. If you look at page 6 of the budget, you can look at it later. I'll just explain it to you. We are projecting that gross tax revenue. Now, this gross tax revenue in this sheet is net of refunds. So, net of refunds, we are projecting that in this financial year, it will grow by 12.5% with reference to last year's actual. So, from 30.54 lakh crores last year to 34.37 lakh crores this year is what is presented in our revised estimates. However, the sharing of taxes with the states is different for different taxes. Not all taxes are shareable in the same ratios. What has happened this year, if you look at the numbers, and they are given on page 6, union excise duties have actually shrunk. They have not increased. Most other taxes have grown at, as you say, 14%, etc. Union excise duties have grown minus 5%. That reduction is almost entirely on the account of the center, because the same way that cesses are not shared, reduction in cesses is entirely borne by the center. So as a result, the state's share has increased by 16.5% in our revised estimates. Between the state share in the revised estimate and the state share last year, there's an increase of 16.5%. So taxes are growing 12.5% net of refunds. State share is growing 16.5% net, and therefore net to center is growing only 10.8% approximately. So there it is not, there is no expected further padding or anything here. This is our realistic but slightly conservative estimate.
Yeah, the next question, please. 65. Please go ahead.
Hi, ma'am.
Yeah.
I'm Kriti from Informist Media. So you mentioned that capex, there has been a push towards capex. However, the capex jump for this year is 11%, right? Which is lowest in last 4 years. So are we moving towards a place of moderation in capex? And secondly, while the budget, this is another unrelated question, while the budget clearly says that you are committed to your 4.5% target, you have also been recommended to bring down your debt to GDP ratio to 40% level, which still stands above 50%. So how are we looking towards moving towards that target? Thank you.
First of all, I'm on the second, your second bit was on the debt to GDP. What was your first one on? Capex. 11% growth in Capex. You've got used to about 30%, 23% from a low base. And today, 11% on a high base appears low. Informist. 11 lakh crores going for capital expenditure. And you're seeing also that the private sector is coming in with their investments. So one has to have a clear understanding that when the government wants to spend through capital investment, it can be for one, triggering the economy so that private sector also comes in. At a time when private sector didn't come in, we still fully came in. Now we are seeing also signs of private sector also coming in. So it's only natural for two reasons, therefore, for you to look at. One, on what base are you saying 11% is less? Growth it is. And second, please do look up if private sector is coming in or not. Does that answer you?
Yeah. The next question, we'll take it.
Wait,
to
wait, wait,
CD.
wait, wait.
Still?
On your 40% of, first of all, that was a figure that was set before COVID. Its relevance today is something that has to be looked at completely afresh. And in fact, in 21-22, the finance minister had set out a particular fiscal consolidation glide path, which is the post-COVID glide path. I would only point out that today India's debt to GDP ratio is one of the lowest in the G20, apart from other countries. So we have to look at things in today's context, not based on a historical relic of a report which was prepared long ago before COVID happened.
Yeah,
And again, our external debt also is something which you should notice has never been high, not high even now.
yeah. Second row, I would request you to confine to one question, please, because there are many questions coming up. Yeah, thank you very much. Please go ahead. Yeah. दूसरा दे दीजिए. Give this another
नमस्कार
mic.
मैम, आलोक प्रियदर्शी हूँ मैं सीएनबीसी आवाज से। मेरा सवाल मैम ये है कि एक कंज्यूमर के नाते, एक टैक्स पेयर के नाते हमेशा लोगों की ये उम्मीद रहती है, या इस देश में कैसे कह सकते हैं कि चुनाव इतने ज्यादा आते हैं कि लोगों को लगता है कि जब चुनाव आएंगे तो उनकी जो मांगे हैं वो पूरी हो जाएंगी, टैक्स के मोर्चे पर कहें, या फिर जो पॉपुलिस्ट मेजर सरकार लेती है। लेकिन क्या इस मिथ को क्या ये सरकार तोड़ना चाहती है कि जब चुनावी साल होगा तो पॉपुलिस्ट बजट नहीं देंगे? जिस तरह से फिस्कल प्रूडेंस की आपने बात करी, आपने फिस्कल प्रूडेंस को लेकर काफी जोर दिया है इस बार बजट में, तो ये इस बात का कॉन्फिडेंस सरकार को ज्यादा है कि वो अगली बार पूरी तरह से आके और जनता के जो जो उनकी उम्मीदें हैं उनको पूरी करेगी, या फिर सरकार इसी तरीके से जिस तरह से फिस्कल प्रूडेंस का जो रास्ता है उसको अख्तियार करेगी और उसी हिसाब से चलती रहेगी, और चुनाव के मौके पर लोग आम आदमी एक्सपेक्ट ना करें कि कोई पॉपुलिस्ट बजट आ सकता है?
आप डिस्कशन जैसे प्रश्न पूछ रहे हैं भाई। मैं पहले से बोलते आई हूं और माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी भी इस विषय में बोलते थे, कल परसों भी उनका बयान है। वोट ऑन अकाउंट क्या है, कैसे है, आपको मालूम है। सो वी लार्जली केप्ट vote on account as vote on account, but also showed how the economy will be moving forward and what's our plan for it. Who are we going to aim at when in July, when we come back to present a budget? Who are the sections who will be addressed? What are the kind of investments we'll make? However, very clearly showing that on capital expenditure, we are showing an increasing growth. More money is being put in for that, for innovation, and so on. So announcements भी है, ये नहीं है कि वोट ऑन अकाउंट है इसमें कुछ और नहीं है। announcements से दिशा निर्देशक बातें भी है। So वोट ऑन अकाउंट एंड इंटरिम बजट को कैसे किस हद तक उपयोग कर सकते हैं, और वो भी कॉन्फिडेंस सरकार, उस हद तक हमने यूज ही किया है।
Yeah, Z Business, and after that you hand over the microphone to your right. Yeah.
मैम, आपने या दो बड़ी स्कीम्स का ऐलान किया, एक अर्बन एरिया के अंदर हाउसिंग स्कीम का, दूसरा रूफटॉप सोलर के लिए। मैम, इसका बजट एलोकेशन कितना है? एक सवाल। दूसरा सवाल मैं मैम पूछना चाहूँगा डाइवेस्टमेंट के ऊपर। मैम, पिछली बार 51,000 करोड़ का टारगेट था, वो टारगेट नहीं मीट हो पाया। इस बार बजट में ये नहीं मिल पाया कि कितना टारगेट अगली बार के लिए रखा गया है, और ऐसे टाइम पे टारगेट नहीं पूरा हो पा रहा है जब मार्केट, इक्विटी मार्केट बहुत अच्छा परफॉर्म कर रहा है।
पहली बात तो मैं ये स्पष्ट करना चाहूँगा कि जो डिसइन्वेस्टमेंट है उसमें हम वैल्यू लॉकिंग का प्रिंसिपल लाते हैं। आपको एक मैं छोटा सा उदाहरण देता हूँ। हमारे जो 61 लिस्टेड CPSCs हैं और 16 PSBs हैं, एक यानी कि 1 जनवरी 2021 में, यानी कि 3 साल पहले उनका कंबाइंड मार्केट कैप 15 लाख करोड़ था, और आज के वक्त में वो 58 लाख करोड़ है। तो हमने 42 लाख करोड़ की वेल्थ क्रिएट की है पब्लिक सेक्टर में, और उसको माइनॉरिटी शेयर होल्डर्स जो उसमें हैं उन सबके साथ उनकी वेल्थ शेयर हुई है। तो आप वेल्थ इफेक्ट नहीं देख रहे हैं, आप सिर्फ उसमें से वेल्थ में से हम क्या निकाल रहे हैं, लेकिन वो जो वेल्थ जनरेट करना भी इक्वली इंपॉर्टेंट है। एक साल अलोन में हमने 21 लाख करोड़ का 25 लाख करोड़ का एडिशन किया है। तो आप समझ सकते हैं कि 2014 से जब हमने 4.2 लाख करोड़ का डिसइन्वेस्टमेंट किया है और 4 लाख करोड़ का हमने डिविडेंड लिया है सीपीएससी से, 8.5 लाख करोड़, उसके मुकाबले एक ही साल में 25 लाख करोड़ का हम मार्केट कैप ऐड कर रहे हैं। तो ये जो वैल्यू अनलॉकिंग स्टोरी, इसका मतलब ये है कि आपको डिसइन्वेस्टमेंट करना है तो वेल्थ भी इंप्रूव करनी है, शेयर की वैल्यू भी लेनी है, और तब डिसइन्वेस्टमेंट कैलिब्रेटेड वे से करना है। इसलिए सरकार ने डिसइन्वेस्टमेंट का एक तो हमने कोई फिक्स टारगेट भी इसे नहीं रखा है। हमने ये कहा है कि हम एक अदर रिसीट्स में एसेट मोनेटाइजेशन हो, डिसइन्वेस्टमेंट हो, वो सब जाते हैं। और दूसरा रिसीट का एक इशू है कि हम कभी भी यदि हमें अपॉर्चुनिटी मिलेगी इससे ज्यादा भी कर सकते हैं, लेकिन एक उसको फिक्स्ड मार्केट सिग्नल ये देना कि हम शेयर बेचेंगे ही बेचेंगे, इसी प्राइस पे बेचेंगे, उसके कारण उसका प्रतिकूल असर मार्केट में पड़ता है। इसलिए जो हमारा वो है, अर्थ ये है कि हमारा जो रेवेन्यू है, और दूसरी हमने इंपॉर्टेंट स्ट्रेटजी है कि डिसइन्वेस्टमेंट और डिविडेंड ये दोनों ऑपोजिट डायरेक्शन में हैं। जब हम कंबाइंड कह रहे हैं हम 92,000 करेंगे तो कंबाइंड आप देखिए, और नॉन टैक्स रेवेन्यू इज द बिगेस्ट स्टोरी। लगभग 75,000 करोड़ का नॉन टैक्स रेवेन्यू ऐड हो रहा है और हाईएस्ट ग्रोथ उसमें ही है। और अब लगभग 1 लाख करोड़ जो है, यदि आप बजट से देखें और नेक्स्ट बजट में देखें, तो 1 लाख करोड़ का नॉन टैक्स रेवेन्यू हम ऐड कर रहे हैं। और नॉन टैक्स रेवेन्यू ऐड में डिविडेंड की बहुत बड़ी भूमिका है, और डिविडेंड हम एक्सीड कर रहे हैं। तो इसलिए आप कंबाइंड वे से इस सारे, यदि इस सेक्टर को देखें तो हमको एक नई दिशा में जाने की जरूरत है, जो हम गए हैं।
Regarding the रूफटॉप सोलर के लिए 10,000 करोड़ का प्रोविजन है बजट में। As regards the urban housing scheme, its contours are being worked out, and there is a token, and it will be funded when the exact contours are finalized.
Yeah, the next question, please go ahead. 81, please. Okay, I mean, I'll.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, sir. Prakash Pedashi from ET Now. Ma'am, the benefit of lower tax rate of 15% has been extended for startups and investment by sovereign wealth funds. My question is, I mean, has it also been extended for manufacturing unit? No, I'm asking, I'm seeking clarity. No. Thank you.
Yeah, Bloomberg, Ruchi.
Ma'am, some of the rating agencies have said that they will take a call on a ratings upgrade for India only after the next budget. But given that this budget of yours, you did say that it has been transparent, you've maintained the path of fiscal prudence as well. What will be your message for rating agencies?
Not only aligning with the fiscal consolidation roadmap that we gave earlier, but bettering it. Is that one simple, straightforward message which every rating agency should take on board? Should take on board.
Ma'am.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Sapna here from CNBC TV. Ma'am, two questions. One very broad, generic. Excellent work in terms of fiscal consolidation. Just want to understand, is it slightly ambitious to have a 5.1 number right away in the interim budget? I mean, broadly expectation was July budget, you know, you will start kind of. No, I don't mean that. No, I don't mean that. But just try to understand, like in 2 years, you'll be able to do below 4.5%. Very broad understanding, ma'am. One is that. Second, ma'am, you're talking about next generation reforms. Within that context, the government has had a, you know, a massive privatization agenda. There doesn't seem to be, you know, any mention of that as of
You
now.
just heard Tuhin. Sapna, you're asking the same thing.
No, but
You went elaborately on it.
but will you still be sticking to it? Just broadly wanted to understand.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Timsi Jaipuria from CNBC TV 18. Ma'am, in your budget speech, you've given a very ambitious target of 1 lakh crore worth of a fund for private sector for research and innovation, where you've promised 50-year interest-free loan. If you could give the contours of this scheme, which are the sectors who will benefit in terms of the private sector, which are the specific sectors who can avail this corpus, and what kind of work or research and innovation are we focusing on, sectors, and how this scheme will work?
So I'll tell you the quantitative part, and Secretary EA can expand on the sectors. There is the 1 lakh crore is a provision over a period of time as the need emerges. This will be provided as a 50-year interest-free loan to a financial institution which will be identified, which will be within the government ambit of financial institutions, who will then finance or refinance projects at long tenors and at concessional rates of interest. Money has been provided in this budget in the Department of Economic Affairs for multiple purposes, including this one. So there is a provision for this in the Department of Economic Affairs, which covers many other things also. As regards the sectors, I'll leave Secretary.
See, as announced in the budget speech, these are the sunrise sectors. And what is the economic logic behind it? These are the innovations and research. Investments are needed today, and the private sector, the returns will come a couple of years down the road. And those couple of years can be 4 years, 5 years, 10 years. For some investments, it can be even longer. So it will not be commercially viable for private sector to invest if it were to be a commercial money for them. So this is what the fund will help them. Clear identification of those sunrise sectors will be through a stakeholder process.
Yeah, business line. Keshav?
Namaskar, ma'am. Shishir here. Just two clarity, ma'am. One is about the TCS. Some changes have been made in the TCS on the LRS. So what are those changes? There is not much clarity because explanatory memorandum is not there. And the second part is the housing scheme. Will it be just like an interest subvention scheme, or what will be the contour of that?
So you are aware that, sometime I think last year, maybe in June or July, there was a press release in which the TCS rates were later on changed from what were announced in the budget of 23-24. So basically it is just to align those TCS rates with what was announced in the press release. There is no further change from what was announced in the press release.
Your question on housing was?
What will be the contours? Will it
It's
just
still
be,
being worked out.
interest subvention will be?
It could be one of the features of the scheme, but nothing has been finalized yet. It's under discussion between Department of Financial Services, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. Multiple options are being considered on how to achieve the purpose that has been set out.
Hello, ma'am. Ruchika Chitravanshi from Business Standard. One question was regarding the relating to the announcement you made about the withdrawal of demand for outstanding tax. What will be the cost to Exchequer for the tax that will be foregone? And second, a small clarification: the 75,000 crore 50-year loan that that is linked to the milestone reforms. Yeah, is that in addition to the 1.3, or is it part of it?
So all of you would be aware, that there are a large number of small demands that are pending with respect to income tax, wealth tax, gift tax. They number in all about 2.68 crore such demands. The total amount, of course, is very high, which is 35 lakh crore of outstanding demand. A lot of it is in litigation. But many of these demands, about 2.1 crore, in fact, 2.1 crore out of 2.68 lakh demands are valued less than 25,000 rupees. Now, many of these demands are very, very old, dating from 1962, when Income Tax Act was was enacted, and right now till very recently till today. So this has been causing a lot of hindrance, especially for the top taxpayers, because these demands are very old. Many of them are unreconciled because of systemic issues. We shifted, our CPC, all the tax records, centralized them in 2010-11 year. And so that's why a cutoff has been taken at 10-11, because previously the demands were decentralized. And so we are unable to, verify many of them, causing disruption and hindrance in payment of refunds. So out of this 2.1 crore demands, which are less than 25,000 rupees, about 58 lakh demand entries for the period pertaining to financial year 9-10. And then from 10-11, these are less than 25,000, as already announced by the Honorable Finance Minister, and another 53 lakh entries pertaining to the remaining 5 years from 10-11 to 14-15. So 1.1 crore small demands, 25,000 and 10,000 for the 5 years. These are being remitted. The total amount is less than 3,500 crore rupees.
The 75,000 crores is part of the 1,30,000 crores.
Yeah, go ahead, please. Yes, go ahead.
Hi, ma'am. This is Pushpita from the core. You mentioned about that nearly 40,000 rail bogies will be converted to Vande Bharat standard. But if we look at the price of Vande Bharat is comparatively higher than the other ticket prices. So considering the affordability of the passengers, what will be the pricing and how will it be decided? If you could.
It's up to the railways, but Vande Bharat trains are one thing. The bogies 40,000 being upgraded to the Vande Bharat standard is another thing altogether. Those bogies probably cannot even take the speed with which we want to improve the high density areas with better speedy transportation for the common man. Equally, the inside bogie experience is also not up to the mark because they've been so for a very long time, and as time passed by, their quality has also come down a bit. So we are talking about the bogie quality matching with the Vande Bharat standards. As to which of those lines of traffic that they will get connected to, and as a result, what will be the rationalization of the ticket price is not something that we can talk about. That's something which the railways will work out gradually. But progressively, that point proves that through the 40,000 bogies that we're talking about, the quality of the Indian rail bogies, which are so important for safe travel and also ease of living travel and comfort, will need upgradation. And this is what we're aiming.
Yeah. Please speak into the microphone.
Yeah, good evening, Minister. Minister, you had announced an aggressive plan for privatization of two government banks a couple of years back. So is that proposal still on table? And my second question is your thoughts on the shrinking successively, every successive year, we've been seeing the divestment receipts shrinking. So your thoughts on that?
I thought Tuhin had explained the second part of your question, but never mind. I'll ask him to again probably explain it.
The disinvestment receipts, as you say, is that, is basically you part with of CPSCs. If you look at the CPSC's performance, whether it comes to capex of 3.2 lakh crore, whether it is their growth story, whether their investment in green energy, whether their performance in return on capital employed, whether you look at return on equity, on all fronts, we are seeing that they are big market players. They continue to improve, and therefore they continue to reward shareholders, including the government. Government is a majority shareholder, but a large part of our shareholders are minority shareholders. So therefore, any strategy, calibrated disinvestment strategy, which will actually do the sum over a period of time is much more than that. And besides, the shares also give you dividend, and we have a consistent dividend policy too. And money is fungible. So we have to have a new paradigm in terms of thinking about, and not to just keep on parting with our wealth at one stroke. We can always do it in a gradual, calibrated way.
We'll take a question from the right side, ma'am. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Ma'am, I have a question on this committee on demographic change challenges. Ma'am, what would be the mandate? What are the areas it would look at? Will it be urbanization? Will it also include issues around, this whole issue about constituencies, political constituencies, given that the northern states have grown faster? Also, two clarifications. One is on the 70,000 crore with DEA for new schemes. What kind of schemes apart from solar rooftop are budgeted for? And two, on this issue of tax, these small disputes, does the 25,000 include only the principal amount, or is it interest and penalty for that 25,000?
On the provision for Department of Economic Affairs, this has two components. There are certain specific announcements that have been made, and those are provided for. In addition, there is a large increase in our capital expenditure budget. We have, as was done in the year 2022-23, we have kept this in the Department of Economic Affairs to be allocated to whichever department requires it at the pace that it's able to absorb, so that we have flexibility to allocate it to whichever department is able to absorb it fastest, whether it's railways, highways, telecom. We have all of them, and they are all essentially eligible to take this money when the requirement arises, so that we have flexibility to optimize its utilization.
Hello, ma'am.
As to your, let me answer the second part. As to your question as to whether the 25,000 rupees amount which is remitted being withdrawn, till the year 9-10, and 10,000 being remitted from 10-11 to 14-15. Let me clarify that this is the amount of demand which is mentioned in our books. And so when this demand is actually entered, then it will include given the interest till the point, when the demand was actually assessed and entered. So it includes the interest till that period, that point of time. And any interest which accrues later on is also withdrawn.
Yeah. The front row, left side, please.
Hello, ma'am. Ma'am,
See, when we talk about demography, it is an opportunity, it is a challenge. And the current numbers, how the changes are happening over a period of time. So this committee will have a mandate to have an extensive consideration of those challenges and the opportunities, and come out with a specific set of recommendations.
hello, ma'am. Ma'am, I'm Monica from the New Indian Express. Ma'am, in your budget speech, you mentioned about the India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor. So given the fact that there are conflicts in the Middle East region, so is the project still on track? And also, when the French president was here, was there any discussion on the corridor?
Well, it's been announced and we are taking it forward. Yes, there is significant disturbance in the Red Sea area and the Middle East, but this is a project which has long-term implications for the entire region up to Europe, because it also includes Europe. So yes, we will be taking this project forward. We will be consulting and taking it in all its contours.
The second last row
Ma'am,
there.
Himanshu Shekhar from
Himanshu.
here, ma'am, yeah, NDTV India.
Second last row, madam.
मैम, एक महत्वपूर्ण घोषणा आपने की है प्रधानमंत्री आवास योजना को लेकर। अगले 5 साल में आप 2 करोड़ घर बनाएंगे। क्या ये फैसला हुआ है कि इसमें से कितने घर आप ग्रामीण इलाकों में बनाएंगे और कितने शहरों में, जैसा कि पहले
ग्रामीण
ग्रामीण के लिए
हाँ,
बनाएंगे?
ग्रामीण के लिए 2 करोड़
और घर बनाएंगे।
हाँ।
और ये 2 करोड़ 95 लाख का जो आपका टारगेट था, वो आपने पूरा हो गया है?
3 crore, we are close to achieving 3
Close to
crores. And over and above the 3 crores, ये 2 करोड़।
2 करोड़ है। और इसके लिए फाइनेंशियल कुछ एस्टिमेशन हुआ है, कितना एलोकेशन करेंगे आप?
extra
Correct.
allocation is provided for. It will be supplemented when the costing is worked out for these additional. But there is a provision to kick it off in the coming.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Yeah, please go ahead.
You mentioned the mandate, which I think we wanted a bit more clarity on that. Is it going to be something similar to the population control bill that has been spoken about in the past, or is it going to have a different mandate, which is needed?
Say the budget speech says, and I'm already responded to that. Wait for the terms of reference to come out, and then you will get to know the exact details. But overall approach is, it is a huge opportunity, but there are challenges. Both have to be taken note of, and appropriate responses to be taken. So that's really that broad idea I can share with you, and terms of reference will come out in due course.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Good evening, ma'am. This is Parth Singh from Outlook Business. Since you spoke about bringing the East India to pace in terms of development, I wanted to ask you, how does the government plans to address the industrial gap to help these states in a free market economy? And for example, more than 70% of the PLI projects are currently concentrated into just 3 states. So I wanted to ask you that.
They are not concentrated in 3 states because we want them to be concentrated in 3 states. If there are investments happening and if there is going to be production in any other non-3 states that you want to talk about, PLI will be extended to them as well. It doesn't go on the criteria of geography. It goes on the criteria of manufacturing. It goes on the criteria of how many additional units are produced.
I just want to add to that. The public sector investments have gone substantially to the eastern region, whether you look at gas pipelines, new fertilizer plants, or even new LHB railway rolling stock, which is being manufactured in Bihar. So a considerable amount of the public sector investment is focused on the eastern region.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, if I can add on this particular one, as we are all aware, aspirational districts program in those districts is making a very significant change. 60% of those districts happen to be in eastern India. And when the people are better educated, etc., then more economic opportunities get generated there because skilled manpower is available in those areas. So we'll see over a period of time, and that is what the government will also be providing appropriate support.
Ma'am, this is Nivedita Mukherjee from the Sunday Garden. This is with regard to the National Monetization Pipeline that was launched in August 9, 2021. And with regard to your focus on infra in this budget, do we see also that going forward, and what has been the progress?
Ma'am, these are two different things. A very large part of infra assets are held by those infra agencies or the public sector undertakings. So as they embark upon their more capital investment, they also monetize some of their assets and plow it back. Some of the assets are owned by the government, so those monetization proceeds come to the government. So that one is going on, and that periodically those numbers come out. And if I recall, next year is also a very ambitious number for monetization. But everything doesn't come to the government there.
Ma'am, I have a question. Actually, could you please
Please
elaborate?
identify yourself, then ask a question.
I am Bani Kinkar Patnaik from the Economic Times. Ma'am, could you please elaborate a bit on the proposed changes in the calculation of agricultural income under the new tax regime? And ma'am, on the 75,000 crore loan.
Say under the new tax regime, income from agriculture.
Yes, yes.
Huh?
I mean,
Where are we?
some reports I saw, ma'am. That's why
I'm not here to answer some reports.
We'll go ahead.
Ma'am, on this 75,000 crore, interest-free loans to states, since it is part of 1.3 lakh crore allocation under CAPEX, so will the same, reforms conditions continue, or will there be additional reforms conditions?
The specifics will be worked out, and it will be reform linked. What reforms, how much, for what, is something that will come when the guidelines are issued.
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
Hi, ma'am. This is Vikas from The Hindu. In last year's finance bill debate, during the debate, you had announced the formation of a new committee to review the national pension system benefits to central government employees. And there was an expectation that, by 6 months or so, we might have some outcomes that you could consider. So, can we expect that anytime soon, or do you think that might be left for the full budget now? One. And secondly, you've committed your government to, taking forward the next generation reforms. I want to get some sense of what are our priority areas there. And lastly, sorry to take a stab at it again, but this population growth committee that we're looking at, uh, is it likely to happen after the census, because we've not had a census for a while? And as per the National Family Health Survey 2020 numbers that we have, our total fertility rate is already below the replacement rate, around 2. So is there some way that we're looking at keeping our population stable at a certain level, or to reduce it over a broader period?
You may want to help me by saying question number 1, question number 2. I'll go on answering. You seem to have asked me about 5 different questions, right? Please go ahead. What was your first?
Sorry.
NPS.
NPS was first.
Once we are ready with the report, we'll let you know. There is no, I don't think there was a time given. We said at the earliest they will give the report. Yeah, so that stays there. What's your second?
Second was, ma'am, some sense of the priority areas for next generation reforms.
Ajay, you want to add in there?
See, you would have noticed that a particular section and extensively covered that what will be the broad strategies for the next several years, getting into those. So those are the indications that that can be the broad area for the reforms, the next generation of reforms. But that's not an exhaustive list, but a broad sense you can get it from there.
And the third was, ma'am, the population bit. The third was the population bit, ma'am.
Yeah, I think, please confine to one question, because, many questions are still there. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Good evening, ma'am. Janani from NDTV Profit. Ma'am, I would like to get some perspective on some of the scheme outlays. One being the capex infusion to OMCs. In FY24 budget, there was 30,000 for retrofitting, petroleum retrofitting for OMCs. This, in the revised estimate, it was said that 15,000 only would be allotted ahead of the budget, but later we have seen that the same 15,000 amount is there for FY25. Just want to understand if the same has been deferred. And also on the fertilizer subsidy, comparatively it's lesser. So the reason or reasons behind that math?
On the oil marketing company public investment, the requirements were reassessed, and it's also been deferred to next financial year. So it has not been provided in the revised estimate. So it was not that it was provided. I mean, they're just coming out with the revised estimate. So it is not going to be in this financial year. It's been provided for in the next financial year. And the second part was?
Fertilizer subsidy.
Fertilizer subsidy is estimated based on recent trends in global ammonia and fertilizer prices, which have been on a downward trend for the last 6 months. So it's our current estimate based on the best information we have right now, which is very different from the prices which were there during the early part of this year.
Adrija from Money Control. You have assumed a nominal GDP of 10.5 for the budget. So that would just wanted to know the division between the real GDP growth and the deflator. Also, the tax collection growth is seen at 11.5, if I'm not wrong. So there seems to be a more significant gap between the two, which we've seen a trend in the past. One more clarity, I'm sorry for adding. This is with regard to a mention that the average real income of people have increased by 50% with moderate inflation, mentioned in the speech. Just want to clarify, is this linked to investment rate or per capita income? Thank you.
Answer. Again, you have to help me out, and you asked 2-3 questions. So again, for the budget purposes, it is the nominal GDP which is relevant. That's how the fiscal deficit and other deficit numbers are done. So that estimate is 10.5%. And I recall last year, again, several of you said that are we underestimating, overestimating, etc. We said we have a realistic number. Of course, this year it has been a little lower, 8.9. So our sense is that next year, 10 and 10.5% nominal growth rate is a reasonable number. As far as real growth is concerned, the breakup is not a budget issue. You would have seen the document which Chief Economic Advisor has brought out just 2 days back, and he has extensively covered his take on what the real growth would be. And so you would have read the document already. Your second question? 50% is I said that announcement, or rather the data which has been shared in the budget, is in real terms. So that has nothing to do with inflation. You are combining the two issues here. There's on a constant prices, income has gone up by 50%. There's yet another statement which is coming up. There has been a moderate inflation. Inflation has been kept within the policy band, except for the post-pandemic period. If we take the 10-year period, it has been well within the policy band. I'll request.
I'll just
Shri to add.
clarify. I'll just clarify this. I think the reference to the growth in real per capita income is 56% is the growth between FY14 and FY23. That's what ma'am was referring to in her speech. And 57% growth in real per capita GDP. Okay? That is what she was referring to. Thank you.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I'm Meghna Mittal from Money Control. The government has announced in the budget lowering the market borrowing for next financial year, the gross market borrowing. So I just wanted to understand what gives the confidence to the government that they'll be able to lower the market borrowing amid the global challenges and the capex increase that has been announced.
So I think the confidence comes from the numbers that are presented. So if the revenue numbers are realistic, if the expenditure numbers are realistic, then the deficit number is realistic. That deficit number is then broken up into sources of financing. And we have taken a 10.5% nominal growth rate, 11.5% revenue growth rate, which is buoyancy of less than 1.1. This year we have achieved 12 plus with a nominal growth of 8.9. So I think a very decent, very conservative buoyancy has been assumed. In addition, the expenditure numbers are realistic. We have provided for everything. Therefore, the deficit numbers are achievable. And the borrowing breakdown is given here in terms of how much is market, how much is small savings. Small savings, we have shown a declining trend in resources from small savings. We have shown a declining trend in external debt, and that is reflected in these borrowing numbers. So these are very realistic borrowing numbers. On the gross borrowing coming down, next year, some of the repayments of loans taken will not be happening from the consolidated fund. They are repayments of the GST back-to-back loans. So they don't necessarily lead to new gross borrowing. So there is a slight recalibration between the growth of the net, in fact, not the growth, the decline in the net borrowing is gentle. The decline in the gross borrowing is steeper, but there is a reason for it. So it's very realistic.
Good evening.
Coming down now to 5.1%, even with a higher GDP number. Borrowings are lower, and with that part, it is expected to be lower as well.
Yeah, we'll
Good
take a
evening,
question
ma'am.
from the middle row. Yeah.
Good evening, ma'am. This is Sanjay Agarwal. I first like to congratulate the entire. I'm Sanjay Agarwal. I work for PN News, ma'am. It's a
What news?
newspaper. This is a newspaper, ma'am.
What news?
It's PN News. It's a newspaper. It's a bilingual, ma'am. Yeah. So PN News.
How do you spell it?
It's P for press, N for nation. PN. Yeah. So first, like to congratulate you. You've made history by presenting the 6th consecutive budget. My question has already been taken by another friend. I want to know that your talking about income tax demands, as Sir explained, Sanjay, that there have been the borrowings is 14.13 lakh crores, and this, your effect is 3.8 CR. So wouldn't it affect, and wouldn't be like in the future, there are a lot of quote, he said it's going to be, people are going to say, okay, waive off our demands. Is this not going to set a wrong, means, I don't know, what should I call it, ma'am?
See, as I mentioned to you, this should not be seen as a waiver. Because as I mentioned, in the year 10-11, we shifted our records, which were previously maintained at zonal levels or state levels, and which were, mostly paper records. Or if they were, computerized, then, they were held, in computers locally. There was no central record. So in the year 10-11, we shifted this centrally to our central processing center now in Bangalore. Lot of those demands, which are over there, they have actually been paid for by the taxpayers. Because when we reach out to them and we tell them, this is a demand, this is a small demand, of course, but they say, well, we have already paid it. But the records were not with us because they were all decentralized. And so mostly these demands are actually not existing. They are existing on paper, but they are not actual demands. They are mostly fictitious, and they are not going to yield any revenue. Some of them, of course, are very, very small, 1 rupee, 2 rupee, less than 10 rupees. So it's not a waiver. That's why Honorable FM in her speech has not called it a waiver. It's just a withdrawal. It's just a correction of entries.
Ma'am, shall we conclude, or would you like to take one or two questions? Yes. We go to the middle row. Yeah. Yeah. No supplementaries. And now please confine to one question now, all of you, the three of you.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Congratulations to you and everybody. Karishma this side from Business Today. Ma'am, if you look at the Manrega allocation, if you see the trend for the last few years, whatever has been budgeted, usually the revised allocation goes, of course, slightly a bit more. And if the trend carries on, it could be seen in FY25 also that you may have to allocate more in the next budget. I'd like to understand from that point of view, ma'am, is the center happy with the way the scheme is working, especially in cooperation from the states?
First of all, Manrega allocation is not done on the basis of a trend. It is based on the demand coming from the ground. That is one answer for your first question. But on your second, much more than me commenting, CAG has commented on the way Manrega is operating in some states, where claims are all reaching a stage where they need to be verified. Are they really existing people in the ground? Are people not really those for whom the payments are going? And questions critical to the very spirit, letter and spirit of that program. So to that extent, the CAG reports themselves highlight where course corrections will have to happen in those respective states. I'm not saying a problem existing in one state is the same across board. Some states may do with some kind of a problem, some others do with other kind of problems and so on. So that has to be addressed differently from, are you gradually coming down in terms of allocation? You're putting 2 and 2 together, which may not be right.
Ma'am, hello. This is Surbhi from Business Today magazine. Ma'am, I wanted to understand by when will the white paper that you have announced come out, and will it be done by the finance ministry? And secondly, ma'am, on capex, do we foresee any slowdown in capex this fiscal, because we have about 2 months left now, and we'll have the model code of conduct coming in. So that no. But yeah, of this is so. Just wanted your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm quite surprised that questions are already coming saying your increase is not sufficient. Is it going to be absorbed or not? I mean, varying words used for that. We believe that capex from the government will continue, and we've given a good number this time also, and it is important to continue as well.
Just to
Good e-
add to this point, model code of conduct, no new work can be started. So whenever the model code of conduct work come, now in the balance 2 months of the current financial year, it will, ongoing works will go on with full pace. There is absolutely no bar on continuing with those works.
Ma'am, this is Sumit Chaturvedi from ET Now. Again, the question is, you said there'll be white paper on pre and post 2014 economy. What is the timeline for that? You said it will be coming soon.
Just to add a similar question, because what would be the parameters on which both periods comparison will happen, because they were both the different periods with different kind of challenges.
Comparison is always between two different periods only. I can't compare myself today, this minute, can I? They have to be varying periods to compare. It has to be so.
On the timeline, ma'am? Yeah.
Huh? Wait when the white paper is laid down.
The last question, please, here.
I am Nikunj Ohri from Reuters, requesting some clarity on the gross borrowing, lowering of the gross borrowing, market borrowing for next year. One of the annexure to the document, budget document, says that maturing debt would be met through GST compensation fund. So, wanted you to clarify whether this relates only to the back-to-back loans that were given to states earlier.
Absolutely,
Yes.
only to that.
So thank you very much. I mean, it was an elaborate press conference. And thank you very much for your presence, everybody. Thanks a lot.